Sometimes I think, are a speedboat when sometimes we need to be a tugboat. I think we need to help operators get where they want to go, and make sure that, when we pivot and we go on our adventure, that we're not leaving anybody in their cruise liner behind, right? So,
Today's episode is with Jessie Lamb, someone we've known for a couple years now and one of the sharpest minds at the intersection of tech and self-storage. Jessie spent 7 years leading projects and tech implementations at Strat Property Management before launching Bright Beetle Consulting, and now she's taken on a new role as VP of Self-Storage at nodaFi. We get into how she makes tech work for teams instead of against them, her approach to system selection and adoption, and how she builds confidence and capability inside organizations. Let's get into it. Jessie, welcome.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Been really excited to have you on the lab. We've known each other for a few years now, and I've always looked up to you and how you think about just everything in general, everything you do. You're the kind of like the perfect combination of like this, I don't know, like this data driven person, yet like people oriented, and I love that. I feel like it's rare in the tech world, and so I'm really pumped to have the conversation today.
Well, that is so kind. You could keep saying nice things about me. I just sit here
You didn't know that
and
that's what we do on the Self Storage Lab is we just, flower our guests with compliments for 45 minutes, right?
I
Well,
didn't, or I would have accepted the invite sooner. So,
That's awesome. Anytime that you need just a little bit of help, to feel better, you just give us a call and we'll sit there and do the compliment session.
you don't
it's
know
so
though.
much cheaper than therapy.
What you don't know is it's like kind of like the like the shit sandwich. Some good in the middle. We'll go into some hard questions, and then we'll
Okay.
lay off. So it'll be fun. So also just want to start. Congrats. I know there's like been a lot of movement in your life. Literally, I think you moved pretty recently to California. How's that been? How are you adjusting to life in Cali?
Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, we did a big move. We went from rural Texas, about an hour and a half north of Houston, to uh, my family's in Oakland. I'm working in San Francisco. So, uh, it's a lot. We got used to our quiet corner, but it's been beautiful. It's a really great city and it's exciting if you are a tech enthusiast, uh, to just be surrounded by people who are similarly inclined, which I'm sure you all know, and uh, really great food and really great
Mm,
music, and so yeah, it's been
heck yeah.
fun.
If I'm not mistaken, you started your career off in HR and eventually, obviously, a lot of things in between, became an ops and tech leader in self storage. Um, so, starting off there, coming from this HR background, how do you think that shaped the way you approach technology um, and team leadership and an operations setting?
I think that's an interesting question. I think people make the world go round, and I think that a lot of times the narrative around, which I think you and I have discussed before and got into a deep conversation about, the narrative around technology is that it replaces people, right? Lets you do more with less people, and that's not really the way that I see it. I think that tech enriches the way that people are able to interact with the world, enhances their quality of work, does the things that they don't want to do, like taking calls at midnight. Um, responding back in real time to, inquiries through a website at 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, you
I
know,
love
it,
I love the rosy glass half full outlook. You can tell she just moved to the Bay because she's not ready to replace all of humanity just yet. Because I
give
feel
me
like every
months,
yeah,
give
yeah,
me
6 months.
6 months, I'm like, we're all cyborgs.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
am the AI overlord.
No, it's beautiful though. I mean, I agree with you, right? Like tech should be an enabler. It should be an augmentation of us, and it should enrich everything that we do. I mean, we love to work. We're as humans, we love doing work, but some of the remedial things like we don't love doing. So like, how do we make work more fulfilling and let the robots do the I joked in the last podcast or one of our last podcast episodes, like let the robots fold my black t-shirts. Like I don't care how it gets folded, but like I want clean black t-shirts on a daily basis. Like that sounds awesome.
I think that's such a great call out because there are so many things like that, and I think traditionally in self storage, for example, we've had bankers hours, right? Or, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Saturday, or there's some limitation, right? And, uh, how people can be available. Let's just, balance the dollars and cents, and also some limitations on when people want to work and are available to work. But we know that if you want to capture every part of your audience, you got to meet them where they're at. So that's, people move after work and they move on Sunday morning and they move, they want to buy their storage unit in the middle of the night. So I think that's probably to me the most glaringly obvious kind of, the low hanging fruit example is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
to augment people rather than to ask them.
I'm curious to continue to kind of dig into your origin story. We love doing that here, and I don't know too much about how you went from HR to operations, or how you actually got into self storage in the first place. So maybe if you could give us the how did Jessie get to where she is today, and what connected the dots to get here.
Hit the highlights of my windy road.
Yeah, and then
I
we'll have Kyle remix it later for us.
Excellent. Okay, I was promised that at some point you drop the beat, so I will just assume that that happens in post production. Um, yeah, I started in HR. I've always loved people. Um, I That's how I started working at Strat. I was their director of HR, and you know, uh, have always loved tech and thought it was interesting. And there was a point where I had automated so much of my job in HR that uh, I wasn't strictly necessary. And but I loved the company, I loved the team, and I wanted to keep working there. So I started asking for other projects and solving other problems, and it kind of naturally segued into um, me working on the ops side and problem solving full time, and then getting promoted again, and eventually uh, working over the whole operations team there and having a great time. I had so much fun doing that. You get to use a lot of power tools in self storage. I don't know if you guys. That's like the best kept secret is if you stick around long enough, they will give you a grinder and let you cut up a bunch of stuff.
I love that. I love that. What actually like what so HR and self storage is the first step. Like was that like a you know something that you set out to do was be in the industry, or like what led you to this industry that is three walls and a door and so unique and creative, and uh we all are trying to solve problems in it.
Oh, like most people, completely by accident. So
Love
I
that.
uh, I
Tripped
don't think
over
I
a
had.
stone and moved once and then decided, man, these things are everywhere.
Yeah, I answered a Craigslist posting. Um, Yeah, I was flipping through all the
Wait, what's
new.
Craigslist?
I know. Okay, so for those people on the
I know you're
call,
joking. I know you're joking, Rodolfo.
but for the young folks who are watching, who probably have no idea, right? That is where if you are either looking to sell puppies or rent your apartment or find free moving boxes or um,
Sell puppies is the PG version of what they're actually trying to sell on Craigslist, but it was Facebook Marketplace before Facebook Marketplace.
oh, that is such a more succinct way to explain that. And also, I'm a classy lady, so we will be sticking with selling puppies.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
so I was, flipping through, looking at pictures of, houses on the market, looking at all the new ads, and one of them said they were looking for an HR director, not too far from me. When Don Clausen is the CEO of Strat, he had asked someone in the office to just throw it up on whatever job boards he knew, and that they would get an executive recruiter the first week of this was on New Year's Eve that this happened. That when everybody's back from vacation, they get an executive recruiter and start looking in earnest. And he threw it up. The person who worked in the office threw it up on Craigslist. That was the job board that he knew. And so I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, this is either a scam, but I'll have a great story, or somebody's legitimately hiring through Craigslist, and I want to know who that person is. So I called him and uh, chatted, and it was legitimately for the HR director for Strat, and met Don and hit it off, and the rest is history. So yeah,
That
Craigslist.
I would love to understand if there's anyone else in the industry that got into the industry because of a Craigslist ad, because that might be one of the most unique origin stories that I've heard. That's awesome. Well, glad that we're here.
Right? Yeah, a decade later, and here we are. Storage is my home, and you'd have to pry me out with a crowbar. So, um, yeah, we over the course of my time in operations, I got to do a lot of neat things. Um, but it mostly just came up organically, as we would love it if um, we could do this faster or better, or um, with less people, or for more hours of the day. So I got to do a lot of neat kind of tech implementations, and um, I guess then the rest is history. So
And I'm curious to pick inside your brain a little bit. It sounds like you're the type of person that, like, just in general, you see problems all over the place that could be potentially solved. But like, how do you think about that prioritization? Like, oh, we could do this with less people. We could save time on that. Like, is that just something innately that you've always done, or is that a learned skill that maybe over the course of like your young career through college, et cetera, that you kind of started flexing? I'm kind of curious, like how people start to flex the ability to see an opportunity, basically.
for me, I feel like that is a skill that I have always had. I have been lacking in many others that I have had to develop in order to use that skill more effectively. But um, I think maybe one of my very first gig jobs. I think I was maybe 13 or 14, and I was washing floors in a movie theater. So they would close the doors, and then at night, the movie theater floors are really sticky, and they have people come in with deck brushes. And that was,
That's
a
awesome.
very, very glamorous job. Very glamorous. Um, but I got free popcorn and I paid in cash. So and I think that, I saw that the cars that they kept for their cleaning supplies, their system for like ordering an inventory was inefficient. So I wrote, and I was too scared to tell. I was too scared to say anything. I thought they were going to fire me, and I really needed the money, so I wrote them an anonymous letter and said, I think you need to fix the way you kind of order an inventory, cleaning supplies, and I think, yeah, I think your supplier is uh, giving scamming you.
That is amazing.
essentially.
That's so good.
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously since then I have developed an ability to uh, say those things out loud with a little more confidence and a little bit more assertiveness. But it took a while. It took a while for me to get there. I think about 25 more years. So,
So, it's interesting how you're like just essentially like diving into that kind of that mix, right? Like either, even now, right? People lean hard in one direction. It feels like they either love numbers or, again, the people side of things. You obviously flow between both of those. Um, Even with that example, like, have you always had that balance? Was where do you think that comes from? Is that just kind of how you're raised and your natural curiosity, or something else?
I got bounced around a lot as a kid. I was with my grandparents when I could be, but I was in care when I couldn't be, and I think I got to meet a lot of really amazing people, and I got to see a lot of different ways of living your life and kind of being in the world. And I also really young started doing, gig work and things like that. So I see a lot of different workplaces and um, different cities and different dynamics. I got to see some really amazing leaders and some terrible ones and everything in between. I think that experience, made made me more expansive as a human and, made me see there are lots of ways to lead, lots of ways to think about problems. And uh, as in all things, the answer is usually somewhere, not on one side or the other, but the wisdom is in the middle. So I've seen extremely people driven leaders in workplaces who ignore all data, all problem solving, all, uh, you know, um, in favor of the anecdote, the easy story, the comfortable narrative. And I've seen how damaging that can be. I've seen on the other side the extreme of folks who are, you know, all data all the time, all the dollars and cents, all of the numbers and what corners can we cut and how fast can we, do this, neglecting kind of behavioral considerations, or that there are real humans involved who might have feelings about what they're doing. And I know that sounds squishy, but I think neglecting how people feel about your work, feel about your product, regardless of what the data says, is just as silly as doing the opposite. So that's a long question to or a long answer to a short question.
No, I love it. I think, a lot of times, people will say that they just like use their gut, but like it really is kind of like a Goldilocks scenario, right? You kind of need to flex the skills, right? And I mean, I could sit here and totally take us down tangents of like all the different gig works, because it sounds like you've had like 1,000 careers with sweeping popcorn infested floors to self storage, etc. But like, with those learned experiences, or those experiences that you have, you get to see a lot of things. You get to learn from them. You get to take what you like and don't like. I can go back to my first startup, and the CEO of that company. I think that there's a lot of things that he did really, really well, from a like an engagement perspective on a personal level, and then he did things horribly well on actually executing on a tech perspective. And you like go, hey, you know what, that I'm not going to look and take the thing around his execution from a tech perspective. but I want to emulate this piece of the puzzle and make it my own. And eventually you get to it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. And some of that just becomes natural to the style that has enabled you to continue to rise, through Strat, from HR to operations, and then obviously into nodaFi, et cetera. And so it really is just something where you just got to take years. It's that 10,000 hour rule, right? Of continually trying to invest in becoming a leader and being aware of that and conscious of how you impact people and processes at the same time.
I think that's such a great call out and a great example. I think anytime you find yourself at the ends of a bell curve, you generally have to stop and look around and examine, you know, how you get back in your moderation. And sometimes it is your gut. Um, but even that, I think it's so squishy to say, well, my instincts told me, or my intuition, but it has value. I think as long as you stop to examine what it is you're processing, right? So it's not like it magically came out of nowhere. There are probably things that you're observing, but maybe not consciously processing, that are leading to that gut feeling. So, um, and sometimes I think examining those and why your intuition is calling you to take a closer look at actions that drive you closer to whatever that is, I think the real money, the real, the real gold. So,
I love it. And I want to continue to dig in. Like, all right, you've identified this problem. The movie theater had a really bad supply chain person that was kind of scamming them. And hopefully you've made some gut decisions on leading through a solution on that problem. Um, how do you think about measuring success on something? Maybe we can use a specific example at Strat or at nodaFi that you're working on right now. Like, but what does success look like when you're trying to mix the humanity side of something with a tech enabled process as well?
you know, I think that's an interesting question. And if we find the answer today, I say we don't publish this podcast, and instead we publish a book, and then we sell our answer to people, and we all make millions of dollars, and then you can actually move to an office with the Rockies behind you as your multi-million dollar view. How does
That's
that
the
sound?
San Francisco in you. There we go.
Yeah, she's got that unicorn status happening now. I like it.
Can't open source that. For me, it's really easy. I look at KPIs, just like just like anybody. When I look at my goals and I look at how I'm going to measure that I got there, I just additionally ask myself, is this something that I'm going to be able to do joyfully? Which, talk about San Francisco sentiment, man. It sounds like hippie nonsense, but I think that better work product comes out of joy. I think that more creative thinking comes out of joy. I think better cohesion in work groups and higher levels of achievement, and um, we go further, we go faster with joy. So I don't know why more people don't stop and ask, is this something, that I can do and do joyfully? Like, why is it normal? Why is it normal to grudge every
What's
step
the
of a process?
what's the YouTube like cleaning lady? I know you know this, Rodolfo, that preaches
What?
joy. The
Marie
lady.
Congo.
Okay,
Google Marie
thank you.
Oh,
Congo.
it's
I
not
knew one of
YouTube.
us.
It's Netflix, and she has a
Whatever.
book. She's
All
a
right.
published author, my guy.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Marie
Trying to have to.
Kondo. Yep, yep. That's very true.
Yeah.
Jesse, like, how do you so to tag along that question? These things, obviously, through experience, come. I mean, they're innate to you, right? I feel like through your whole career, you've gone through uh, and managed and built teams and walked them through significant changes. Like, how do you cultivate that culture? Is that something you teach? Like even to your, I feel like your philosophy, right? Like, even if you're coming into that being at Strat as an operator, or maybe in your current role, um, how do you like teach and get long time storage facility managers to embrace KPIs and new tools that they could use, or procedures? How do you think about that?
I don't know that there is any magic bullet. And again, if we find it, I'm going to make a course and then sell it and be millionaires. But I think, I do think universally there are kind of some things that people respect around the kind of change management that you're talking about. So, and for me, that's these, right? I communicate honestly about the problem. I think the leaders who have done change management the best, and in my experience that I try to emulate, are folks who don't sugarcoat why it is we have to make a change, even if that's ugly. So, uh, for example, I had a leader who said, you know, you aren't gonna like this, right? Like, let's just front load it. Let's have the honest conversation that, we're gonna have to change schedules because our business demand changed. And now we have more demand at a time when we used to have less people, which means now two of you have to be working every Saturday. And I had so much respect in that moment for the upfront, not the, you know, this is going to be great, guys. It's going to be so good. You can get there eventually, right? You can say it'll feel better to work on Saturday for the folks who have to work on Saturday, because you'll have more support, which you needed and you've been screaming about. So, um, help is on the way. But I think just the kind of the initial upfront, like, here's the problem we're solving, and here's the only way I could think of to do that. So, or here's the only option we could afford, or here's the option that we can implement with our current systems, and it's the only thing that integrated. So, um, here's something, and we chose it because even though it's not the best in this area, it gets us more bang for our buck here, and just gets us a little further. And I fully recognize that that makes your life harder when you're trying to do these tasks that used to be a little bit easier in the system, right? And that doesn't feel great, but there was a reason we made that choice, and there is no system that does it all. So let's talk about how we, you know, make this as easy as it can be, because like that's how we're moving forward. And that doesn't feel great to say as a leader, so sometimes we shy away from, I think, having those kind of transparent conversations. Like, I made the choice to make your life harder through this transition, right, so that it will be easier on the other side. Or I made the choice to make your life harder because it gets me a gain that the business has to get in order to remain viable, which is going to stink for you because you're going to have to work through this clunkiness every day. And I'm real sorry about that. Um,
I,
but
I love it. As you're like describing this, one thing I go to is, one is just like being transparent and honest, right? Which is like, we started kind of the conversation around humanity and like having the human element and a lot of this stuff. But what I was visualizing is when I was going through engineering school and like tasked with a really complex engineering problem. I'm in multivariate calculus. Well, like most of the time, there's not this like direct path from point A to point B. And so, one of the things that I got in a really good habit of doing is like on one side of my paper going, well, what are all the variables that I know? What are the variables that I don't know? and listing them out. What are the formulas that I'm aware of that I can start to use to do this, right? And a lot of these maybe are complex formulas. And then what are some of the expected outcomes? And a lot of times that is just at the very beginning. It's like, well, I know that I'm looking for the speed of something, or I'm looking for the weight of something. So it's some type of a unit of measure that I'm expecting at the end of this process. And just by clearly defining this, whether you're working by yourself or in a group, like you can sit there and now have an educated conversation again internally with yourself or with other people around like, how do I get from point A to point B, right? Because it's not a clear way to do that. And that's ultimately, you did that with, Rodolfo asked about people management and change management, et cetera. And like, ultimately it's the same thing. You're saying, hey, look, here's the things that we know. Here's the things we don't know. We understand that some of this stuff is unknown unknowns and it's going to be messy, but we have some limitations around us, and we're trying to impact revenue. We're trying to impact the amount of time you spend on the show floor, whatever it is. And this is why we're making the best decision we can today. And like, maybe we'll change later down the road, but this is the stuff that I'm doing. And when you're open and honest and showcasing that formula with somebody, most of the time you're hopeful that people are acceptive of that. Which, talking about change management, we haven't even really gotten into your jump from, Strat to nodaFi. And I'm kind of really just kind of curious, like, to me, I talk about a lot of these moments in my life as like leaps of faith, right? Like, uh, I can point to like 3 or 4 areas or times and points where, like, you know, you're scared, you're kind of anxious around the next thing, but you have to take this leap of faith in order to go into the next version of who you want to become, or the next challenge that you want to challenge. So I'm just kind of curious, what did that look like for Jessie when you were, transitioning from Strat to nodaFi, and like, why did you feel that that was the right next step for you?
Ooh, big question. I
We're
when I
here to
left,
try to dig into the psyche a
yeah.
little bit,
Oh, I know. You told me this is you told me the hard questions would be in the middle. Um, I really in anything in life, I'm in it for the adventure, right? So I wanna I wanna have every experience there is to have. I want to know everything there is to know. Small goals, small, humble goals.
I love it.
So,
Again, you're in California. You're in the land of milk and honey. I mean, adventure is out your door every time you step outside. You get to choose it. That's awesome.
but yeah, I think yes, 100%. This is a new world for me. I mean, I lived in San Diego for a while, and I've wandered all over the place. I've got wandering feet, but um, but I had found a very cozy, comfortable home in Texas and working for Strat, obviously for 7 years, and loved it there and loved the leaders and loved the team. And when I left, I knew it was time to do something new, and I just didn't know what. So I put out my shingle, like so many people in the industry do, and decided maybe consulting. I'd get to work with lots of different kinds of people and do different kinds of work, and maybe I would see something or it kind of sat on my heart. And kind of, we talked about the gut and the intuition, right? So I just wanted to feel what I felt the day that I sat down with Don Clausen and he offered me the job at Strat, and I just knew that that's where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. And about 6 months into consulting, I had been working with nodaFi and having a wonderful time. I think they're they've created something amazing and are continuing to create something that I think is really going to serve our industry. And I got 2 job offers from operators, and that had happened a couple of times over the course of consulting. That folks said, "Hey, if you want to make this full time, come in." But they were just doing what I was doing before, almost exactly, and maybe a little bigger or more states and more team members and things, but the same job. And I wanted to I wanted to do something. I wanted to take a leap. Consulting was a leap, but when I found my next home, I wanted it to be a leap. I wanted it to be the next challenge, the next learning. I wanted to have an adventure. So this is certainly that.
Is there
Here I
anything
am
that
in the heart of San Francisco in tech. Woo.
is there anything that kind of is motivating or exciting you about working now on the kind of like software vendor side of the industry after, you said 7 years at Strat?
I love the energy. So I love the pace of innovation, the expansiveness of the thinking of the people that surround me, not just at nodaFi, but other vendors, vendor friends that I've had in the industry over the years. It's a lot of fun. It's it's a lot of fun. I think, the pace at which they are solving what would have previously been unsolvable problems, is just exponential. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of unsticking our sticky parts of our industry. I think that's um,
This all wraps back down to the
yeah.
trauma you experienced at the movie theater and the sticky floors, is what you're saying.
When you have seen rats the size of small dogs fighting over leftover popcorn, it sticks with you forever, and then you just want to unstick everything. Yeah, yeah, that's you got to the root cause. This is so much cheaper than therapy. Thank you, Mason.
This is what I'm trying to do, just connect some dots of I wouldn't say childhood trauma. It sounds like you were like a teenager, I think, at that time that you were doing that. So
Teenage trauma,
yeah, exactly.
teenage teenage workplace trauma. I think everyone's got their first job story, or their all the maybe they weren't maybe as labor conscious in the 80s and 90s as they are today.
So early days of a new adventure at nodaFi, I'm curious, like, is there something that has surprised you about making the leap from, you know, property management and operations into the kind of the tech enabled vendor side of the industry?
Oh goodness. Um, it's early days yet. And because I was consulting, with vendors as well as operators, during my gap, my spring break, um, I I don't think maybe surprising is delightful, maybe delighting. I delight in the uh, kind of work culture is a little different. Um, and the pace at which problems get solved is a lot faster. Um, I love how fast something can go from, hey, we had this really great feedback on this use case from a customer, to, okay, that's now a solution for every customer going forward, just so fast. And I love that. I think if I have any frustration with the amount of, or with, being an operations leader, it is that you are, you know, driving a cruise liner, not a speedboat. So you have to shift, and everyone has to shift with you. And then, you're doing the change management for uh, the next push, and sometimes from identifying a problem to implementing a solution to getting everyone on board actually enacting it can be months, you know sometimes years. So the pace of change is much much slower. Y'all are running real fast. You're running real fast.
I love it. It's a lot of fun, but it also, if it's the Mark Zuckerberg, move fast and break things, that sometimes you move too quickly and things start to break a little bit under you. So you've got to figure out how to pace that a little bit. There's actually two questions that kind of pop up from the last like little bit of conversation. The first one to me is I'm curious in how do you guys identify like customers that are willing to be like, I don't want to call them gimme pigs, but like the innovators, those disruptors that you can partner with the new feature, with the new thing. Like what's that process look like internally to notify? And then like how do you guys partner in like the design, the testing, et cetera, as you guys kind of continue to push whatever problem you're trying to solve together?
You know, I've seen that handled a couple of ways. So we've had customers who have specifically asked for a solution and or asked for, a use case that nobody had even considered using the software for. And um, then worked really closely with that customer um, to kind of bring it to life. I have seen where we've had, internally somebody's had a bright idea and wanted to bring a feature into the software. And then we have picked a customer who is discerning. I was trying to think of a diplomatic way to say really critical because those people give the best feedback and they have tell us why this is a terrible idea. Tell us why this doesn't work. Show us how you break it, you know. And then I think that those people are instrumental in driving change forward. So if you have any of those cantankerous folks out on your teams, for anybody who's listening to that, just honor and value their surly ways because they're driving innovation forward in every sector right now. So
Totally. It's like I say this to a lot of our customers, and we do a lot of like checkpoints. Giving them analytics around how the health of their account and showcasing new features, et cetera. And one of the things that I say all the time is like, we love feedback. We love positive feedback. That's great. It feels nice. But like honestly, the lifeblood of a tech startup like us is critical feedback, right? It's maybe the athlete in me, like, but somebody telling me what we're doing wrong in areas that we can get better at and why it's not going to work is the thing that like really enables us to push forward, right? And I don't know that we practice like fearless feedback all the time, right? Like the ability to do that internally, but that fearless feedback of like saying, "Hey, I'm not scared to receive, but also to give," because ultimately the objective here is to become better, right? It's such a valuable piece of the puzzle. I was asking a question around you had used an analogy of operators being large cruise ships and software vendors like nodaFi and Swivel being kind of these like small speedboats that can go off on these adventures and are pretty nimble. And just kind of curious like where you see the biggest friction point between that operator that struggles to kind of change course quickly and these software vendors that are always kind of adapting and innovating, etc.
sometimes we, I think, are a speedboat when sometimes we need to be a tugboat. So I think we need to help operators get where they want to go, and make sure that, when we pivot and we go, on our adventure, that we're not leaving anybody in their cruise liner behind, right? So I think, um, we might, for instance, push a ton of new features, and we're so excited, and we're breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back because we're so, uh, you know, brilliant, and people are going to love these. And then we find maybe 3 months later, you're like talking to a customer and they don't know about the feature, or they know about the feature and don't know how to use it, or they haven't adopted it into their workflow because they didn't quite understand what the value was. Um, so I think, just like when we pivot in operations, sometimes you have to kind of over communicate to make sure that nobody gets left behind. I think you have to do the same thing with operators to make sure that if they're on they're a swivel expert today, but they're a swivel expert 3 sprints from now when you've added 100 features. And, same thing with us at nodaFi. So, just as we're innovating, that we're not, uh, leaving people, teetering around the bay. They could be out in the ocean with us. Oops.
I like this, and I'm gonna. There's one last like analogy that I'm gonna use to hit this home, and it reminds me of Savannah, Georgia. It's one of my favorite port cities in the country, and I love sitting on some of the rooftops in Savannah that are right on the river, and because they have these huge cargo ships with hundreds and hundreds of shipping containers on them, and it's going through this tiny little shipping port, and at all times you've got, you have these like tugboats, right, that are kind of guiding them through the channel in order to get them to the place where they're going to offload or reload the shipping container. And it's interesting because, like, part of what you have to do is you have to like constantly be ready for the cargo ship to be ready to come into it. So it's like, you're always like signaling to these cargo ships like, hey, we're here, here's the new feature, here's the thing. And then when they're ready to come, you've got to greet them and have your tugboats that can like help onboard them and teach them and get them through. And then the last little to throw the flag in the sand around the Savannah analogy is, old school Savannah. I forget her name, and I'm sorry that I forget her name, but they're for 60 plus years, there's this woman, and she's got a statue right on the river, where she would greet all of the boats personally with her and her dog, and she would wave her handkerchief, basically to celebrate and welcome them to Savannah. And it's like you kind of have to do that too, right? Like they've docked and they're ready, and now they're on the new feature, and you've got to celebrate that arrival with you. And so we probably drew the boating analogy out way too long, but it came to my head there. So there you go. Thank you, Rodolfo, in the chat. Florence Martis waving girl statue, and I guarantee you he did that because he just didn't
In
believe that
tech
that was
with
an
our,
actual
our
thing, and so he
customers
wanted
and
to go fact
operations
check me
with
real
our
quick.
boats. A pause for acknowledgement and celebration when we
Yeah,
take these big
exactly.
swings is, I think, the most neglected step of change management. I feel like so often, we're just, okay, we did it, we're done, and we're on, and now we're on to the next sprint, on to the next thing, on to the next feature, onto the, without really acknowledging the effort that people put in to get where they are. I think it leads to a level of kind of fatigue and burnout with, the product releases. And so instead of being greeted with excitement, I think they can be, treated as just another, something else to know, to do, I have enough things to know and to do already. I don't need that. So I
I love
think,
it.
So
think we have.
yeah, we were literally just talking about that too, pretty recently. Just like there's always something else, or something to go after, or new bug to squash, or a new account, or a new feature and release. And it's so important to just slow down and celebrate as a team. Celebrate with your customers for that launch, or for any milestone. I think in general, the whole as we talk about culture and continuing to grow the team, like it's so important to get those things sorted and really have it ingrained into the day to day, because it's sometimes hard, and one forgets, and especially like maybe us, since we've been kind of doing this for so long and kind of get into that routine of just continue to push. It's really important to just balance that out. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you. I know that's hard to, I think in the tech world, the third rail is ever acknowledging that people might need to breathe. Like we're not gonna say there's a behavioral component to tech because everyone thinks that, or I have heard very broadly expressed that if your tech is appropriately designed, if it's the right price, should take no human interaction or touch or to, you know, onboard it, to interact with it, to, you know, which in a utopia I believe in. We should design products that are really easy to interact with, and because it's not really the world we live in, because we don't live in a fully digital world, and we also live in a world with people in it. So who are tired and who have a lot of systems and who have 100 apps on their phone and who, you know, might need somebody to hold their hand and explain to them how something works, or to get their account set up for them, or, you know, to help them understand, you know, the differences in the workflow today than the differences in their analog workflow. So
I'm
thanks for
gonna
speaking the unspeakable out loud.
I'm gonna withhold my my internal desire to have a 35-minute diatribe about the origin of the iPhone and how amazing iPhone software is, and that my 5-second diatribe on this is the only thing that like it amazes me in tech when I see like a 2-year-old pick up an iPad and just innately understand how to swipe and move between apps. Like it's just so brilliant. Like that's probably the only thing that like matches um that sentiment of like you just don't need a manual or people to guide you around. Is just like it's just amazing like that a group of people did design interface. And I know a lot of people in the tech industry, you know, Samsung and Google, or building different touch devices, but just how innate that is and the creative minds behind making it so simple is kind of amazing. But that kind of transitions us into away from my diatribe, because I will sit here for 45 minutes talking about the paper behind, the original Safari and all that kind of stuff. But or even liquid glass these days, and wanting to understand like what's next. Where do you, what's getting you excited in the tech industry, in the crossover between tech and storage, and maybe even just like what can we expect to see from nodaFi in the next coming months or year.
Well, thank you for opening that up, because I'm here because I believe in what we they have made and are continuing to make, because nothing is ever made. It's not ever done, right? Uh, as soon as people interact with it has to grow and change to accommodate the way that they're using it. So, um, but nodaFi is really the operating system for the built world. So, we have PMS systems that in our industry, FMS systems, right, that are meant to touch every part of admin and kind of the digital customer experience. And nodaFi really touches every part of the physical maintenance and upkeep of the property. And so vendor workflows and work orders, ticketing, uh, but really brings it into the digital space by uh, allowing assets to be tagged and tracked with QR codes, and allowing folks, to come to a property and scan a QR code, get it on their daily checklist on their phone, right? And kind of know immediately what work needs to be done. So that's my sales pitch. How'd I do? Did I do good?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I'll let the rest of your team, give you the critical feedback, but from an outsider, I'm here for it.
They're probably going to say, what are you doing?" Okay, because that's not the pitchy sales pitch. Those are the things about the product that I'm excited to see live in storage, and I think would have unstuck a lot of sticky points for me as an operator. Um, it solves a lot of daydream whiteboard wishes that I had when I was sitting thinking, how do we do this? So that's why I'm here. And we're gonna in the next year expect to see a lot more um, a lot more of that for self storage folks. So that's why they hired me. They are know that this product has a place in remedying a lot of the pain points in self storage, and so. Uh, because they already have self-storage customers who are using it and loving it and have made a lot of really great feature suggestions. And so that's how they kind of like built and grown it. And, we're going to take it even that much further, that much faster. Having an operator sitting in their meetings going, "Hey, that's, that's not how people walk a property."
Yeah, that's huge. And that's really exciting to, see more and more software coming to the industry that actually has, um, honestly, it just feels like it's been lagging behind the industry, and like seeing some of the stuff that's been working in other industries. I think even nodaFi like has other verticals and whatnot, and being able to run playbooks and just make them more specific to the industry too. I'm sure that helps, having that knowledge of what's worked elsewhere and how can it be applied here, and obviously having you lead the charge with your experience. That's really exciting for you guys. So really pumped
Thank
to see what
you.
comes next. Um, Coming into like the last little bit of the episode, we like to do some quick fires if you're down for that.
Oh,
Just a
okay.
couple
All
questions.
right. No math.
Yeah, I'll probably ask like two, and then I'll see if the other guys want to ask anything. But first one is, if you could hand every operator in the industry a handbook that you wrote, that handbook that you've been talking about, what's the title of chapter one?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Oh, if I could hand every operator in the industry a handbook, what's the title?
Of chapter one. Don't have to be the title of the whole book. You can do whichever though.
Um, Dusting Doors, a beginner's
Right.
guide to all things self-storage cleanliness.
Love it. Um, for some reason, my head went to uh, what is it? What you said earlier? We're not a speedboat. Uh, we're a tugboat or something. I don't know, something with tugboats, because I like that. That was cool. Um,
I'm gonna jump in because I have chapter one almost written of a book,
ooh,
and the title is a physics lesson, energy transfer, and the whole
ooh.
thing is around entropy and having to continually like optimize because chaos is naturally created throughout things. I'm just saying, like, in order to like go through the rest of the things that I want to talk about, and this is a book that I've been like kind of drafting for 12 plus years, so it's in various stages of draft form, but I want to relate things back to uh like physics in general. So, anyways, a physics lesson is the first chapter.
Love that.
That sounds brilliant. Uh,
Excited
that
to read
sounds
that.
brilliant. Yeah, I would love to read that as well.
All right, one more. When you're stuck on just making a big decision, are you more likely to go on a walk, build a spreadsheet, or phone a friend?
If I'm stuck on making a big decision, I usually need to be in motion. So I would go on a walk. But if I didn't have to choose one of those three options, I'd put some brown paper or up on the wall and write all over the walls for a little bit.
All right. That's kind of like the spreadsheet option. All right.
I
A
love it.
little bit. You need the
Yeah.
kinesthetic component. You need to
I
be,
love that.
you need to be
I love that
moving
you're
around.
specific that you want brown paper on the walls. Like I would have been like, I want a whiteboard, etc. But like she's like, no, I want brown paper on the walls, not the big yellow sticky notes. I want brown paper.
I've got a roll of butcher paper that I use specifically for that purpose.
Nice.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
everyone knows it's mine because, they've got a whiteboard or a big sticky note and they're like, oh, that's Jessie's weirdo brown butcher paper. So,
Do you actually like use it for like cooking, like cutting, or no, or just for
no,
creativity? All right. All right. Just
no,
curious.
yeah. I like having big swaths of paper to line out ideas on. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's actually a great idea.
yeah.
I may steal that.
I love that. I've got one that kind of relates to it, and it could be that this is that, but like my rapid fire is like, what's one tool or system you couldn't live without?
So that's mine. I think there's something really freeing about writing on the walls. I think maybe that's a little kid thing, but there's something taboo about that. But I
There's a
think it
lot of
kind of shapes.
I love that. It is like a lot of today is for whatever reason bringing me back to engineering school because like in engineering school we had a room that was a whiteboard room and literally every surface from the chairs to the table to the ceiling to the walls was a whiteboard and so like you could lay on the floor and write on the floor, you could like lay on your back and write on the bottom of a chair if you needed to, and just like the ability to throw things out of your head is so powerful. And so whatever tool you use to do that's amazing.
This brings me back to like the early days, previous like pre-swivel Mason. Whenever we're like we lived together and went on a little apartment in Boulder, Colorado. Not much money, but we're like really into whiteboards. But whiteboards were expensive, and so we went to Home Depot and got like one of those like white. I don't know what they're actually called. They're hardboard. So they weren't like whiteboards, and you can like go in and you can cut your own and make it whatever size you want. And we got a few of those and brought them home, and we had whiteboards everywhere.
I still have one of those.
Yeah.
It's in storage. I'm just saying.
Test.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah. All right. Some more like personal ones. I'm curious what your coffee order is.
Black coffee.
Black. Love it. See. All right. You kind of you answered the one where you had a problem to solve. What you would do, and you said in motion. So, what's your favorite thing to do when you need to recharge?
Then I'd phone a friend.
Phone a
So
friend. What are you
yeah,
talking about? What are you guys gabbing about?
anything. I would call anybody that I can get on the phone. Tell me about your day. Tell me about what's going on with your kids. Tell me about the funny thing your dog did. Yeah,
Awesome.
let's
A
let's
theme.
meet up and get a drink.
Nice. A theme throughout today's podcast was around adventures. You have gone on a couple of adventures, and you're on your new adventure with nodaFi. I'm curious, outside of the business world, what's your most memorable adventure you've ever been on?
When I was a young person, before I had my kiddos, I took a beater Honda Shadow that I got and fixed it up and went all around South America and saw some of the national parks and slept at some truck stops and had met a lot of really great people and did some interesting work and had a really great time. So that's my that was my big adventure.
I love that. Uh, I don't have anything else, Jesse. I really appreciate you spending time with us today. I'll let Rodolfo or Kyle ask anything that they want to close us out on. But thank you so much for today.
Jessie, last question. Like, where can people find you? Where can people hear and learn more about what you're doing? Get up to date with your own personal work and milestones, and even nodaFi. Where can people find you?
Oh, that's kind. I am all over LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to shoot me a message or, um, you know, follow my work, I post updates there a couple of times a week, and I'm always happy to connect at conferences or networking events. I've been out and about a lot more in the last year, so uh, come and find me and say hello. I love it when folks come up and introduce themselves and say like, "Oh, I saw something you did." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm famous. Am I storage famous?" I feel storage. One person knows me. I feel famous. I'm sure that happens to you guys all the time.
Oh yeah, I always do enjoy following your posts on LinkedIn. So keep them coming.
Thank
Anything else,
you.
guys?
That's really kind.
Awesome. I think that's a wrap. And remember, you can find us at selfstoragelab.com. Like, follow us anywhere you really listen to music or podcasts. Yeah, that's it. Talk to you next time.